Okay, so today we're going to talk about who I feel is responsible for the, you know, detrimental downfall of Ubisoft that we have seen over the course of these five, actually more like 10 years. Uh, he is, of course, not Yves Guillemot. Of course, Yves Guillemot does have a hand in this. I feel he's equally as responsible, but that because he was the guy that made the decision to keep this guy at the helm of all of Ubisoft's projects. I am talking about the chief creative officer of Ubisoft, Sergei Haskoi. Now, he is not a good person, obviously, and I'm not saying that because of the canceled projects or the direction that he forced the games to take lately. It has nothing to do with that. I feel he's just a terrible person, obviously because of everything that came out against him, which we will cover later on in this video. But let's start with where everything started falling apart. I'll cover, of course, where it fell apart for the games and obviously how that affected the company, and of course the other things that Sergey got up to in all this time that he had so much power that Eve, bestowed upon him. He gave him so much power, which just doesn't make sense. Because I mean, big companies like these, they're run by committees. A lot of different people are involved, and of course, they are involved in this company as well. However, Sergei Haskoi just had a lot of power, way more power than any one person should have had in such a big company. But yeah, let's start with the first article that I ever read that featured him was in 2016, this GameSpot article, uh, where he was interviewed and it says that he has had enough of linear narratives. This was essentially, when you think about it, it is the downfall. It is where everything just went wrong. So this article starts. It says during an interview with French newspaper Le Monde, I don't know if I said that correctly, Ubisoft chief creative officer Sergei Haskoi said that he'd prefer to move away from linear narrative structures in favor of more player-driven approaches. Game Informer reports. Now, I hate this guy for everything else that he's obviously done, all the terrible things he's done, but I also hate him for all the terrible things he did to the all the games of this company, all the games that came out, and all the games that never came out because of him, of course, which we'll go through throughout this video. So further in the article as we go, it says Haskell sees things like cutscenes as a restriction of player freedom. During these scenes, I am not doing what I want to do, which is evolve in this world. Oh my god. He said, I don't want us to write one story, I want there to be tens of thousands of stories, that each character has one, and I can speak to them if I want to know that story. Uh, you know what? Let's proceed further. What interests me is to create worlds that are interesting to me as well as anyone else, Haskell said. If I have a game set in San Francisco like Watch Dogs 2, I'd want even my mom to be able to play, to have fun, drive a boat, helicopter, car. There has to be interesting people to meet too, and that they come across well. He wants the player to be able to enjoy themselves on their own terms. We want to give them many methods: private detective, assassin, hacker, hunter. You can try out these professions along with all their problems, and to become more powerful. All this raises the question, will the Ubisoft space game teased in Watch Dogs 2 have a linear narrative, or will Haskell get his way? Wait, the space game? Wait, was that the space game that they teased when you hack into the Ubisoft office? Let me look up what happened to the Ubisoft space game Watch Dogs 2. The sci-fi game that Ubisoft teased in Watch Dogs 2 is cancelled. Wow, not a surprise there. This is an article from IGN from 2019. The sci-fi game discovered in a secret trailer hidden in Watch Dogs 2 has been canned, according to former studio employees. Former creative director Alex Hutchinson, by the way, that's the guy that worked on Assassin's Creed 3, um, tweeted out a link to the in-game trailer that was discovered in 2016, saying "R.I.P. Pioneer." Former Ubisoft animator Jonathan Cooper sent out a similar tweet. Oh, Jonathan Cooper. Wait, Jonathan Cooper was going to work on this game too? Oh my God, Jonathan Cooper. Hold on. The game was codenamed Pioneer and was reportedly a space exploration game expected to be officially announced in 2017. Wait, hold on, wait a second. Jonathan Cooper was the guy that worked on AC3's animations. He also, I believe, after AC3, he moved on to Naughty Dog, where he worked on he worked on Uncharted 4, Uncharted Lost Legacy, and The Last of Us Part 2, among many other games. Which, a very impressive catalog. An amazing animator. And, it's very sad that, like, he was kind of working on this game, and then it never happened. Actually, let me check out his website real quick. Okay, so for his presentations, if you go to his presentations on his website, it mentions animating the third Assassin's Creed 3 developer session, a bunch of other things, and it mentions women are not too hard to animate, which I'm pretty sure it refers to what Alex Amancio said. Hold on, so this is a presentation. It's a GDC from 2015. Okay, so an hour long. I obviously can't watch that here. So it talks about women are not too hard to animate, which it features a bunch of different speakers as well, which we're not going to talk about today. Anyway, okay, this was kind of a weird segue here. So wow, so they had Jonathan Cooper, they had Alex Hutchinson on this space game, and then they just canceled it. Wow, I mean, way to go, Ubisoft, way to go. Sorry, not Ubisoft. Sergey Haskoy, I blame him. He's the one that basically holds the he's the guy that holds all the power. It's his say at the end of the day. He says yes or no. If he says no, your game just doesn't come out. Let's move on to the next article, which I think is pretty important. This is from 2018, October 1st, 2018. So about 2 or 3 days before Odyssey launched. And as we go through this video, I'll cover multiple different sources, and I'll mention them as well. And you'll see the slow decline of Ubisoft, and you'll understand why this has happened. So the first article that we just went over just now, that was from 2016, so almost 10 years ago. And this article that we're going to cover now, the second one, is from 2018. So we'll be moving from 2016 all the way to, present day, 2025. So this article is from Game Informer, which is titled "Ubisoft Creative Head Talks the Future of Assassin's Creed and Splinter Cell." It begins, the first question that they ask him is, let's talk about building new IP. There are some interesting examples from Ubisoft where for AC3, the Singapore team built the sailing tech, and you doubled down on that with Black Flag, and now you're breaking that off and creating a unique brand, pirate brand with Skull and Bones. Okay, how do you want to decide when you want to turn a new gameplay concept into a new brand, or bring it into the fold with a pre-existing franchise? To which he replies, I think there is no one rule, it's case by case. So for Skull and Bones, it was the team in Singapore's idea. They proposed to move forward for something like Skull and Bones, and we decided it was a good idea to test. It was their choice. Sometimes it's our choice at HQ, sometimes it's their choice. That's not true, Sergey. You have canceled a lot of projects. We'll talk about that in this video. So it's more like it's your choice. It's not their choice. They might have an idea. They'll come to you, and of course, you say yes or you say no. It's up to you. Anyway, we have to believe in the ideas, and the ideas can come from people who know how to do games. We have to believe in the idea, and if we believe in them, then we can decide to make the game. We moved from Prince of Persia to Assassin's Creed because we thought the prototype was compelling enough to do something new and fresh. Once again, it was a team idea. but it's case by case. You can look at all of our creations and you can see it's a mix between us, me and my team, the dev team, possibly, Yves Guillemot. It's very organic, he says. I disagree. Um, it's more like it's you and Yves Guillemot. I mean, at the end of the day, Sergei Haskoway is more the one that is more focused. He's the one that, you know, uh, he's the guy that everyone goes to when it comes to any pitch that they have. Of course, they go to Yves Guillemot as well, but before it comes to Yves, it comes to Sergey. And if he says no, it doesn't go to Yves at all. If he says yes, then it goes to Yves, and then it gets greenlit. Um, so it's not as it's not exactly the way he describes it. It's not organic. The next question asks, how has the editorial team at Ubisoft HQ evolved over the last decade? Do you handle pitches in a similar way, or has it changed? Now, this is an interesting question that we should look at. We should look at what he says. We have a process for the pitch because otherwise we could have too many pitches and it can be debilitating for a team to hear no. Oh yeah, it can be debilitating for a team to hear no. I had no idea you thought that way, Sergey. We want to protect everybody, so there is a process to go to the studio boss first, and if the studio boss is very happy, the pitch comes to me. We want to protect everybody. I don't think you do. I really don't think you do. Uh, I have some VPs that handle all the brands, and I have some people around them who are the experts in the IP. This pool of very experienced people helps me decide what is good and what could be very successful. 8 years ago, the editorial team was quite small, maybe 10, 15 people, and now there are 80. As I've said, committees are kind of where the problem begins, because when you have so many people working on one thing, I'm not talking about games, I'm talking about this decision process. When there's 80 people on the editorial team, the decision making process is very just it takes a long time for them to make any decisions, because there's a lot to go through all these different teams. The editorial team, there's a lot of people that this information has to go to them, the pitch has to go to them, and then it's up to them how they which ones they pick and give to Sergey and which ones they don't. So there's probably a lot of projects that never even reached him, for him to just say no anyway, because he is not very bright. He's kind of stupid. I don't like him. But we'll talk about it. Obviously, you don't have to take my word for it. So, next question. With Origins and Odyssey, it seems like Assassin's Creed is moving away from the Assassin fantasy. Oh, yeah, that sentence could not have aged worse. Moving away from the Assassin fantasy to enable more player expression to play the way they want to play. Do you worry it's moving too far away from that, or do you feel like it's still anchored in that fiction? We have the same question internally quite often. With Odyssey, we discussed that. I don't think you did, man. I really don't think you did. I found we are lacking some of the flavor of an Assassin, so we are working on that. We don't want to move away. We want to respect the brand, but we also want to improve it. I think the RPG mechanics are really improved, but we need the leap of faith, the sound, all of the good stuff of the previous games. Oh, yo! So you're telling me Sergey is a hardcore AC fan? You think he's like an OG? He loves the classic games? No, he's not. He's not. He could not care less about these games. But I think it was a good decision to move away from the previous fighting systems to the new one. I actually agree with that. I never thought I would agree with this guy, but this is the one and only thing I think I will agree with him on. It's added value for the player. We are careful about the brand. We work on it. No, we don't work on it. The dev teams work on it. You just control them, and have your way with them. When you allow the player to customize their character so they can remove the hood, it's okay, because this is a player decision. We don't have to force the player to look the way we want them to look. The philosophy we have for all games is player expression, player freedom, and autonomy of the player. That's where you went wrong. See, I'm not saying, having player decision is bad. Player freedom, that is the worst thing that you could have said. Freedom is the worst thing that you could have learned as a child. Learning that word was very detrimental to Ubisoft and to Assassin's Creed, because freedom, in his words, means that you shouldn't be limited by the boundaries of a story. The gameplay should just encompass everything. So the story should not limit your ability to play the game. It shouldn't limit what you can do in the game, which we'll talk about in the course of this video. Uh, Next question goes, we once again have AC games in back-to-back years. Are you planning on yearly releases of AC moving forward? And he says, no, it depends. What we did was we built two teams, one in Montreal and one in Quebec. And it's shocking that Quebec, the team that didn't begin making Assassin's Creed games, the one that got their first Assassin's Creed game, the major Assassin's Creed game, being Syndicate. That team is the one that they made the head of Assassin's Creed. That's the team that's going to be leading, the AC, which I feel is very stupid, but more on that later. And he says, we wanted to give them enough time. Debatable how true that is, but whatever. I played AC Odyssey last November, and it was nearly finished. For us, it's not a question of annualization, it's more a question of quality. If the team has enough time to produce and polish something, if it's at the highest quality, I think people can enjoy an experience of 80 hours every year. No, it's not. I don't like that. 80 hours every year? What are you talking about? It's possible, but I'm not saying we will have one every year. It's not the plan. I mean, would you look at it now? The AC roadmap right now, we have a bunch of games coming out in the next 2-3 years. So that didn't really age well. Next question goes, Ezio is almost always named people's favorite assassin. One of the things that separates him from the others is that we spend more time with him. He was the star of 3 games, and we got to live his life story. It wasn't a fleeting experience with one person. Do you think about that when designing new assassins? To which he says, no. Actually, you know what? This is another thing I might agree with him on. It might be controversial, right? I know not everyone is going to agree with me on this, that we don't necessarily need multiple games with the same protagonist anymore. The reason why I think that is just because, in short, in brief, I'm not too confident with a lot of the writing teams, and the problem is we really don't need 3 games for one character anymore. The DLCs I think can actually just take care of that. Granted that the DLCs actually move the story forward of the games, unlike Valhalla's DLCs, which were just made so that they're vaguely placed somewhere in the story and you don't know if they're set in the beginning of the game or like the middle or like the end. You just don't know. So that was stupid. But with Shadows, I think they might return to the DLCs actually moving the story forward. So I personally don't think that we need 3 games or multiple games anymore with the same character. I think we need multiple games with the same modern day character. So Basim was set up as the modern day protagonist in Valhalla, which they did nothing with. I want them to do that. I want them to do something with him now in the future. Is it likely? I don't know. We really can't say, but that's a topic for another day. So he replies, obviously, well, why not more games with one protagonist? To which he replies, the most interesting thing about AC for us is to explore history, not characters. When we decide what's next, the main question is what the next period is we want to visit. That leads everything. So when you jump 100 years or 1200 years, it's hard to have the same character. Maybe in DLC we can go further. And of course he says, I agree though, when you saw the old Ezio in Revelations, it was very powerful. But the context and time are the most important priorities. Which, you know what, I agree. I didn't think I would agree with this guy, but 2 things I have agreed with him on so far. I don't imagine I will agree with him any further, though. There's things that he just doesn't jive with me. Anyway, next question is, with Bayek and I, stories you left an opening to return. The ending was much less resolute than other AC games. And he says, I don't want to discuss it, but there is a plan. When we create characters as strong as Ezio, it's a pity not to go further. But then Bayek and his wife are powerful characters. Maybe something else will push forward, be it a TV show or a movie. Thank God they abandoned Bayek and I. I don't like them at all. I'll talk about that in a different video. Next question. You told Le Monde, I don't know if I said that correctly, you want Ubisoft to move away from cutscenes. Do you feel like a game with Odyssey where you are introducing more choice into the narrative that you're going in that direction? Are you where you want to be? Now, this is an interesting question, and it goes into detail about why the games lately have been the way they are, right? Valhalla is one of my favorite games in the series because of the amazing lore and everything that the game did. But of course, a problem with that game, a problem with Odyssey, a problem with a lot of Ubisoft games lately is that the cutscenes are just not there. There's just most of the mocap cutscenes are just not. I mean, most of the cutscenes are not mocapped. A lot of them are, the in-game cutscenes that they make using. There is motion capture involved in the cutscenes, but it's not, properly mocapped in one setting, and that is a problem. And it's a problem because of this guy. He was the one who didn't want cutscenes. He hates cutscenes, and you know what? Let's look at what he says. He says, it's going in a good direction. It's not what you ask the team to do, it's how you ask them to do it. And the transition is very slow. Movies, televisions, books are not the same as games. In a movie, you are a spectator. In games, you should always be an actor. Oh God. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's see where he's going with this. The games shouldn't decide for you, he says. He says that you should be a spectator. He says that it should still be your player decision. No. And then he says the F word, the word that I hate. We need to give this kind of freedom to the player. No, man. Okay. You know what? It gets even worse. Fewer cutscenes is a good direction? What? But what will be the best will be when the player won't be in front of a cinematic if they don't want to be. If they don't want to be in front of a cinematic, then just don't play the game. Don't play the game if you don't want the cutscenes. What do you mean? So his idea of if you don't want to be in a cutscene or cinematic, he just removes them. But oh my lord, I don't like this guy at all. How am I gonna get through the rest of this video? Anyway, let's move on. We discuss this approach every time. Cinematics are not good when they are forced. What I say to the narrative people is, be so good that the player will want to go meet the characters, attract the players, don't force them. I mean, when you look at that sentence isolated, you might think he's urging the narrative team to write interesting and compelling characters. That's not what he means at all. He just wants you to remove cutscenes. Why would I want to know these people if the scene, or the context, the way the medium in which not the medium, sorry, the way in which that these characters are being introduced to me, the way I'm interacting with them, if it's just so I don't know how to say it, if it's just so boring, or just not as immersive, then why would I have any interest in knowing them? Why would I have any interest in watching these cutscenes? Sorry, I said cutscenes. He doesn't like that word. He doesn't like cinematics either. But let's move on. What most excites you about interactive entertainment right now? And he talks about VR. He thinks it's a marvelous industry. He thinks, he also talks about China. He says China, China's here. And free-to-play games like Fortnite, they're part of a new, exciting space. And he says our business is full of possibilities. Of course, I mean, we have Invictus, the multiplayer game coming out, which is cool. I mean, yeah, I guess we've wanted a multiplayer game for a while. So yeah, nice. I mean, the multiplayer in the older games was good, so that's cool. But what he says next is insane. He says, you know what is missing in this industry? A soul. This guy, the creative officer of Ubisoft, the guy who hates cutscenes, who hates linear narratives. This is the guy telling me that he thinks soul is missing in this industry. He says video games are about gaming, and gaming is not about entertainment? What? How do you fumble this bad? How do you give this guy, the guy that hates games, how do you give this guy the reins to say, yeah, you're the creative officer, everything, all the projects in this company, they begin and end with you. How does this idiot get so much power? Video games are about gaming, and gaming is not about entertainment? What are you talking about? It's about learning, he says. What? No, it's entertainment first, learning second. When you learn, you have fun. Yeah, okay, man, but he says when we are just entertainment, we are losing something. How about I can't say that. I can't say that. I can't say that. So before I say something wrong, let's see what let's see what he says. I question the team about what real benefits the player will take away from the game for their real life. Right now, we don't do enough in this area. This is what excites me. How to make something that lets you have the most fun while also having something beneficial for your life. See, I kind of understand what he means by you should take away something from the games, like in your real life after you play the game, there should be a part of it that resonates with you. And the thing is, before he started messing up the Ubisoft, the older Assassin's Creed games, the older Ubisoft games, they did they were beneficial for you in a way, in the sense that their stories were so compelling, the experiences of playing those games was so fun, that it it genuinely resonated with you. When you play the game, the stories were emotional. You were invested in them, and after you played the game, you thought to yourself, "Yeah, that was a very good experience. I'm glad I played that." And you might have, you might have taken something for that. You might have learned from Altair's stoicism. You might have learned from Ezio's, well, Ezio's uh, uh, flirting with women. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, uh, something beneficial for your life is not something you want any piece of media to be. At the end of the day, yeah, a piece of media, a story could be very compelling enough for you to, like, you could be in a dark place, right? A compelling story, compelling narrative could help you get out of that dark place. But that doesn't mean the game should be designed to teach you something. The story can do that. The game doesn't have to do that for you. At the end of the day, it's entertainment. You're not learning anything. This is not a documentary. But, of course, there's no telling this to this guy. He obviously doesn't care about that. I've met a lot of Ubisoft employees over my 20 years covering games, and there is a lot of talent in your buildings. That is true. There is a lot of talent at Ubisoft. Unfortunately, because of Sergey being at the top, a lot of talent never really got to shine. But compared to other publishers, there seems to be a higher turnover rate with creative directors. A lot of senior level people like Patrice Désilets, Alex Hutchinson, Clint Hawking, and Dean Evans end up taking their talents elsewhere. All these guys are pretty great in terms of, their creative ability. And he says, yes, but Clint came back. Do you not do you not understand the... Oh my god, he just says yes, but Clint came back. The reason they all left was because of you. Every single person that has left was because of you. You wanted control. You wanted everything to be the way you wanted it to be. And because of these differences, they had to go. It wasn't they left, you made them leave. There's a difference. Leaving of your own volition and leaving because of, well, this guy. Our turnover rate with creative directors isn't that high. I don't agree with that. I mean, there's quite a few names mentioned here: Patrice Desolé, Alex, Clint, Dean Evans. But of course, Clint is back now and working on Hex. I can't wait for Hexa. Oh my god, it's gonna be amazing. Anyway, he says yes, but Clint came back. He says our turnover rate with creative directors isn't that high, but each time it's painful for us. No, it's not painful for you at all. He says it's a part of life. It's a very hard job with a lot of pressure coming from everywhere, internal, external. The players, we support them as much as possible. No, you don't. Lies after lies in this interview. There's just so many lies. He says there's pressure coming from everywhere. It's pressure from you. You're the guy. Internal, external, that doesn't matter. You're the top. You're at the top. That's all the pressure coming from you. And because no one could, work with, these people couldn't work with your restrictions, they were forced to leave. Not that they ever would have wanted to leave. Maybe they would have wanted to leave. And of course, he does talk about this, right? Later on in this article, towards the end, he says, it's case by case. I know it's not always because of Ubisoft. It could be because the special context of that particular point of their life. They want to move somewhere else, or they don't feel the passion anymore, or they want to express themselves differently. For Patrice, he wanted to do something else outside of Ubisoft, and he wanted more freedom. I mean, of course, look, he did want more freedom. Of course, you didn't really allow him that, which is why he had to leave. Well, not had to leave, he was forced to leave. He was escorted out of the building by security. That's how bad it was. The guy that created one of your biggest, your biggest cash cow, Assassin's Creed, that creative you kicked out, and you talk about giving them support. This guy, man, I am so glad he's gone. So he says it was okay. I think Ubisoft offers creative directors a lot of freedom, but we have deadlines too. We have the framework of open world, more systemic than narrative. Wait, what? More systemic than narrative? What are you talking about? The games have always been narrative driven. That's the point. They've never been more systemic than narrative. What are you on about? What is this guy talking about? How the hell did this guy become responsible for one of the biggest video game publishers? And then, well, I mean, Yves Guillemot, he's responsible. And because Sergey was handling, all the creative decisions of the company, it is where it is today. It's very unfortunate, but this guy, oh God, I hate this guy. But let's continue. We offer a lot of freedom and opportunities, but within a narrative framework, sometimes it can be a philosophical issue, but it's case by case. With Dean, I won't explain all the reasons he left, but if you want the messages they sent me before they left, I can show you they loved Ubisoft. Okay, man, whatever. It's like it's so stupid. It's like, oh, hey, look at these DMs I have. He loves us. He says, we have 45 creative directors in the studio. You can ask them. They are more than happy, even if it's hard. You're the guy making it hard for them. This guy has no self-awareness, because he doesn't think anything he's doing is wrong. And this is one of the guys. This is why this company is in such a bad situation right now, where it has had to turn to China, Tencent. And of course, Tencent, thank God, I don't know how the future will be, but at least these next 2 or 3 years might be good for the series, or Ubisoft in general, actually. We don't know how it'll be after that. But this guy, it just goes to show you how much he just doesn't understand, video games, because he says it's not about, it's not about entertainment, it's about learning. What are you talking about? I mean, what is this guy talking about? Has this guy never played games before? So, since we've covered what Sergey Haskoy thinks about video games, and we know it's not good, it's nothing that the chief creative officer of a video game company should think. But you know what? We've covered 2016, 2018. Now it's time to move to the year of 2020. This is a very painful time for Ubisoft. And this is when a lot of allegations came out about Sergey and a lot of upper management at Ubisoft. But among all the things that came out, there was also a lot of reports that surfaced about the canceled projects by Sergey Haskoy. So there's a pretty crazy one actually. Ubisoft was actually working on a King Arthur fantasy RPG that was directed by former Dragon Age creative director Mike Laidlaw, but it was canceled by Sergey. Canceled by Sergey. I hate this guy. I hate this guy so much. So, Dragon Age's Mike Laidlaw. He was hired to direct the development of a new RPG, which was codenamed Avalon, which was basically supposed to be a big budget adventure involving stories of King Arthur and his round table in like a sword and sorcery fantasy world full of knights and legend. I love that. That sounds amazing. And it was canceled. You will not believe it. The reason it was canceled was because Sergey thought he was suspicious of the fantasy genre, which is stupid. How can you be suspicious of the fantasy genre? He says, if it was to be a fantasy game, it had to be better than Tolkien. It has to be better than Lord of the Rings? What are you talking about? This guy, oh my god, my head hurts. Just going over all the stupid things this guy has been saying, and he is the creative officer of one of the biggest companies, or at least what once was one of the biggest companies in the gaming industry. And the unfortunate part is that from the report that surfaced, it looks like this game was progressing well, and it also featured a cooperative multiplayer world, which was similar to Capcom's Monster Hunter games. And in an effort to save the project, the team even reshaped the game into like a science fiction Greek mythology experience, but he was still unwilling to approve it, and it was canceled in 2019 with Mike leaving the company shortly after. It's very unfortunate, but it's obviously not the first story about Sergey rejecting pitched projects. He was also at the center of scrapping a lot of female roles in multiple Assassin's Creed games. He was also responsible for minimizing them. And of course, we all know he resigned. He resigned from Ubisoft because of the sexual misconduct and toxic culture allegations at the company. And of course, he was also playing a central role in the company's culture problem, as you could imagine. And it's a shame because there's so much potential, and it was all squandered by this one guy who just had way too much power in his hand and was not at all deserving of it. So now that we've covered everything there is to know about this guy from 2016 all the way up to 2020, let's look at what the current situation is with Sergey Haskoy. He was responsible for ruining Ubisoft, not just the games, but also just a lot of people's lives because of what he did. So let's go into a little bit about what happened. It's a very uncomfortable topic, but it's what happened, and it's one of the reasons why Ubisoft is where it is right now. So there's an article from the Economic Times from March 11th, 2025, which is about a month ago, and it looks like he is actually on trial because of the sexual harassment, and I am so happy that he's actually facing the consequences for his actions. Actually, there's three executives from Ubisoft, three former top executives, but of course we're going to be focusing on Sergey Haskoy. And basically he denies this. He denies having harassed a single colleague, and he denies having knowledge of any wrongdoing by any Ubisoft employees, Of course, he would. Of course, he would say that. Now, he is accused of lewd behavior and posing intrusive questions of a sexual nature, as well as racist comments and behavior. And following deadly jihadist attacks in Paris in 2015, he allegedly asked a Muslim employee if she agreed with the ideas of the Islamic State group. This guy just, the more I read about this guy, the worse it gets. Okay. The woman had her computer desktop background changed to images of bacon sandwiches, and food was placed on her desk during the Islamic fasting month of Ramadan. Oh my God. I mean, this, the more I read, it just gets worse. There's a lot that happens. I don't want to talk about it here, but it's just so bad. I mean, it it really puts into perspective just just why this company is hated so much. I mean, there is a lot of talent at this company. They make a lot of good games, or they used to make a lot of good games, and sometimes they do still make good games, but it's just overshadowed by the amount of terrible, terrible things that have happened at this company. And my God, and it's a lot of it, most of it, is because of this one guy. Of course, Yves Guillemot, all the other executives are also responsible, but a lot of the creative decisions are handled by Sergey, and he's the guy responsible for all of this stuff. And my God, I mean, in 2020, when there was a survey, an internal survey in the company, at least 25% of the employees had been victims of professional misconduct at work, or they were witnesses to it. That is insane. Okay? That is an insane number. It shouldn't be 25%. It shouldn't have been 2.5%. But the fact of the matter is, it was 25%. It got that high. It could have been even higher. And it's all because of this guy. It's all because of Sergei Haskoy, and I hate this guy for that. And he, I feel, is the one guy responsible for ruining Ubisoft. As I've said, Yves Guillemot and the other executives are responsible as well. Anyway, this was a long video. There was a lot I had to look into and research, and I'm not happy about this. This is just a terrible situation overall with the company, with all the employees, because it's one of my dreams to work at Ubisoft. Not work at Ubisoft, but I want to work with Darby McDevitt one day. I want to write a game with him one day. And if I had joined Ubisoft, for example, only to, experience this, during the month of Ramadan, this woman had her desktop background changed to images of sandwiches, and food was placed on her desk. And not just that, but, other things as well. If I had experienced that, I would have been just destroyed, because like I have looked forward to this my entire life. I've always wanted to work on this series, to have at least one game, to be able to write one game, and just to find out that something terrible like this has been going on at the company all these years, and only now we found out about it. It broke my heart. But of course, I'm not saying that my feelings are important on the matter. They're not. At the end of the day, all the people that were victims of the harassment and the abuse, it's terrible what happened to them. I hope one day to work at Ubisoft, or not work at Ubisoft, at least I want to work with Darby McDevitt. If that happens one day, I can die happy, to be honest. I would love to work with him one day. But if the company is still like this, then there's really no hope for it. I hope it does crash and burn, if of course it is still like this. We can't know, but from what I have heard, what we have heard, it looks like it is getting a bit better, but then of course there's not enough information right now, so we can't say, unless another scandal happens and then we get more insider information. But until then, thank you for watching. I am tired. I don't ever want to think about this guy ever again. If you enjoyed that, please like, subscribe, comment. I'm gonna crash out now. Okay, so before I crash out, I'll see you all in the next one.